Exciting times for the silver market, with silver ripping higher towards $40 an ounce. What is next for silver? What is next for silver mining? And what is next for investors looking into this space? We're joined today by two prominent CEOs who are now merging, Galen McNamara and Gary Thompson. Gary will be executive chairman of Silver47 post-merger, and Galen will be the CEO, previously CEO of Summa Silver. You can check out both of their prior interviews with me, links down below. Excited for you, gentlemen. Congratulations on the merger. Thank you for coming back on the show.
Thanks, David.
Yeah, thank you, David.
Before we talk about the merger itself, let's talk about why now. Is right now a good time to be merging? Is with silver ripping higher, one would speculate that there should be more M&A activity, but on the other hand, shouldn't mergers be happening when the silver price was much lower? Galen, I'll let you respond to that first.
Yeah, sure. I think that's a pretty critical question. It's like, when do you, from our perspective, when do you merge, as a company? And it's very difficult to call tops of markets or bottoms of markets. I think, you need to take a bigger picture approach to M&A a lot of the time, and especially in this case, and say, hey, are we going to be more valuable to our shareholders together, in any market? And I think the answer for both of us was yes. So that's really what drove the decision for myself.
Gary, any response to that?
Yeah, I would say that that's the case. I mean, it's tough being a microcap junior resource company, and I think the attractiveness of scale just provides more liquidity, a better access to capital, and a stronger company ultimately. And I think, yeah, silver space right now is very exciting with this breakout that we're witnessing. And I think we're starting to see a lot of inbound interest in what we're doing and what we're about to do and what we plan to do. So I think now is a good time that silver is moving. I think we're all planning to capitalize on that.
Galen, why do you think the silver price shot up beyond $35 an ounce, even while at the same period gold was kind of trading sideways while silver was shooting up?
Yeah, well, let's rewind back to the beginning of the year, and gold relative to silver really took off. So I think a lot of us were thinking of the silver market and looking at it and going, hey, you know what? Like, it's time for silver to start playing catch up. And one of the things that I believe drove the silver price, or the gold price, was buying out of China in Shanghai. We didn't see that in silver at the beginning of the year. It was mostly just gold. And now I'm seeing reports that we're starting to see it in silver as well. So maybe that has something to do with it. In any case, if we look at the silver and gold ratio, the gold to silver ratio, it was like 100 up until just recently, and I still must be like 90. We're only just getting started if we're really in a precious metals bull market. And, I'm looking for that ratio to drop to 50, or less. So I think both metals, maybe there's still room to run.
Gary, what's your take on silver right now?
Yeah, I think it was just a matter of time. I think there was a lot of analysts calling for silver to move. And we've seen a pretty flat silver price for quite a while against the gold that really took off. And silver was just really coiled up waiting for that to happen. I mean, historically, there's a very strong positive correlation to the gold silver price. And we just have seen that disconnect happening. And now it's just silver's just playing catch up. And like a lot of people would suggest, silver is probably going to outshoot this run. And my feeling is that silver will be different this time. It's not going to be a spike up to 50 and down. I think it's going to be a sustained, much higher base silver price. What that number is, we don't know, but it's looking like has very strong fundamentals for silver going forward.
Well, Galen, if you're expecting the gold-silver ratio to reach 50, that would imply, let's suppose that the gold price stays unchanged and the gold-silver ratio is the thing that changes. Well, then that implies an 80% upside for silver. What needs to happen for the gold-silver ratio to drop to 50?
You know what? I just look at the past, and hey, history might not repeat itself, but it certainly rhymes. And I look at something that really strikes me in the macro is there's a multi-decade cup and handle. If you look at the silver chart going back to 1980, that's number one. Number two, just general big picture supply demand dynamics. Right now, the ratio is somewhere around 100 or just below it, but very historically, it's been 20 or 30, and then mine supply is like 7 or 8. So it just like It doesn't really make too much sense to me where it is now and where it has been. And, I really do see, because of those reasons, that there's a very strong chance that it's going to come down substantially. We know that in history that, in a bull market, that silver typically lags gold. And then when it takes off, it outperforms gold. So maybe we're starting to see that now. But you zoom out even more, and I think there's still potentially quite a lot of room to run in both the metals. But silver still has a lot of catch up to do.
That theory certainly does make sense, Galen. So if you take a look at the year-to-date chart that I have on the screen here, gold and silver are both up roughly about 28% year-to-date since the beginning of January. If you zoom into 6 months, gold is up 28%, while silver is up only 21%. But it's only recently that silver has been outperforming. So this is silver on a 3-month basis. And then 1-month basis is silver 14% and gold up 4.5%. So it's only in the last month that silver's been moving much higher than gold. And in fact, if you just take a look at this chart here, basically the two metals have been moving in tandem all year long, except for the last month. Should we still be looking at silver as a proxy to gold, given what's been happening in the price action over the last month? Or do you think it's following something else now? Is there another market driver that's been feeding the narrative for silver to move much higher?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think the narrative for silver has moved dramatically into the industrial demand side of the equation. And we know that a lot of central banks have been buying gold. We don't see the central banks really loading up on silver like they are on gold as more the monetary aspect. So I think the industrial move on silver is really going to push it much higher. And again, to my earlier comment, a sustained higher new floor for silver, and that's going to be driven through the new industrial demands. As an example, the solid state batteries that are projected to hit the market in 2027. So we haven't even seen that demand hit, but when those solid state silver carbon batteries hit the market, that's going to be the future of battery technology. So that's going to drive future demand for silver, in addition to the solar and other uses. So that's my thinking on it. It's a new base case for silver.
Galen, what is the use case for silver? Just jumping off of what Gary said, the use case for silver that you are most excited about in the next 5 years.
For me, I like the new batteries. Those could pan out. There's a very good chance, but I think fundamentally as well is the solar industry and solar panels. If we're looking at large solar buildouts in many places, say each solar panel takes something like an ounce of silver, give or take, like overall component, that's not a big cost per each solar panel, generally, relatively. But when you're looking at huge buildouts, that might take, every year, a couple or a few 100 million ounces out of the market in a market that's like 1 billion ounces. That sounds big, but it's actually quite small. That demand is very significant. That's number one. But number two, going forward, also that the next generation of solar panels coming out, things that are referred to as TopCon, or there's another one that I can't recall right now, they use a little bit more silver and a little bit more silver. And you can't really substitute silver in electrical components. Number one, because its conductivity is very, very good. And then number two, it's like a relatively small part of each of these components. So just the elasticity there just doesn't make sense to necessarily substitute it for something else. So, for me, from the industrial side, yeah, solar is really the way forward for silver.
Gary, how would you evaluate the mine supply that we have available to meet this growing demand that Galen was just talking about?
Yeah, well, it's slow to mine supply is slow to come on. I mean, these things just take time to build. You can't turn on a mine like you can perhaps an oil well. So it's just a time lag from where we need them and when we're going to get them. So I think even if we pushed as quickly as we can, and it's capital and time. So we're just fighting the clock to get there, and that demand is obviously strong, and we're basically playing catch up to meet those demands, I think. And so we'll see how that supply demand pans out in the future, but I think we're on a pretty good run here. We've got a overreaching demand and a short supply. So that's good for us and good for what we're doing.
Galen, can you talk about how the trade war that has been ongoing since the beginning of the year has impacted at all the mining industry, specifically the silver and critical minerals mining industry?
Yeah, like that is really an emerging investment theme in mining, in the mining business, is that where do we want to source our metals from? And yes, the current administration has really highlighted things through tariffs, and there's now disagreements between the United States and Canada on many things. But I think we'll work them out. But I want to zoom out from that and say, hey, like, where do we want to get our critical metals from? Do we want to be reliant on places like China? Or do we want to be reliant on, for battery metals, like, places like the Congo? And when we get these things that go into all of our devices, our phones, our computers, and we get them from places like the Congo, we're kind of exporting our pollution to places with zero environmental standards. We're exporting dollars to places with no employment standards, and they end up in the hands of dictators, where it's dollars for dictators. So for me, all of this current trade drama aside, I think it's really important that for us to, as societies, to be getting these important metals from first world sources like the United States. Like a made in America is important for our metals as well.
Okay. The interesting topic of the day is well, for me at least, is this merger between the two companies that you both represent. So congrats once again. Tell us about the deal that is going to be concluded, I believe, later this summer. Tell us about the deal size, how it's being financed, and then we can get into the geology side.
Yeah, well,
Gary, I'll start with you. Yeah.
Sorry, Galen, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Gary. I wasn't going to say anything.
Yeah, so we came together as an at-market transaction. So when we started talking, we were both about 40 million or so market cap. It's a good way to do it. It was a fair deal, at-market transaction, and so that's how it kind of came about. And if you look at the share exchange ratio, I mean, we're sitting at about 70 million shares outstanding in Silver47. And their share ratio exchange ratio is 0.452 for Summa shareholders. So we'll end up with about 126 million shares issued and outstanding on a basic basis combined. And then we just announced the closing of a 6.9 million financing in Summa, which will convert into Silver47 shares on closing. So we'll have a pretty good balance sheet, somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 million Canadian combined into Silver47. And then if you look at the resource side of the equation, there's about 70 million ounces in Summa, more silver gold ratio, and Silver47 had 168 million silver equivalent ounces, but only 36 of that was silver and about 200,000 ounces of gold. A lot of base metals in the Silver47. So I think on a combined basis, we go up to about 60% precious metals, 60% precious to base metals, and we're about 236 million silver equivalent ounces on inferred category, and another 10 million silver equivalent ounces on the indicated category. So 246 silver EQ combined. It's a pretty strong base case for a junior company, really building a premier silver company focused on the U.S.
Galen, let's back up for a minute. Why is it necessary to merge to begin with, not just for Silver47, but with any other company? I mean, you both represented successful companies prior to this merger. They were doing great. What synergies do you realize? Why is this merger necessary from an investment standpoint?
I think, first of all, I really look at it this way, to start to answer that, is that, look, as the perspective of the CEO of Summa Silver, I have two ways to grow. One is through the drill bit and drilling out our deposits and growing ounces organically, which we did, and would have been continued to be successful at, and will be continued to be successful at. That's number one, but that takes a lot of time. And number two is to look for like-minded companies where we can grow together through M&A, where we think that 1 + 1 might equal 3. And well, why would 1 + 1, might equal 3? Well, if we take our combined market caps and say double them, we're going to expose ourselves to a different class of investors. We're going to expose ourselves to ETFs. we're going to expose ourselves to potentially to uplisting into different markets. And growing that way. So for me, then that's really the reason that it made a lot of sense.
Gary, anything to add?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's exactly right. It's scale. It's you have to be bigger to be. I think no, I don't have to be bigger, but I think there is an attractiveness to becoming a larger company. Again, attracting larger institutional investors, perhaps getting into the index funds. And we do have our sights set on the New York Stock Exchange. We're starting to see more resource companies and miners. There's not that many that are listed on the New York Exchange, but you have access to the largest market in the world. So that's one of our medium-term goals, is to get that scale that we can upscale to the New York Stock Exchange would be an ideal place for us.
Okay, well, this is an interesting opportunity, or good opportunity rather, for us to gain some insight into how mergers are done and deals are concluded. And let's just start from the genesis. Investors watching this may be curious to know how acquisition, or in this case, it wasn't really an acquisition, but merger targets are picked. Can you just start from the genesis of this planning and basically how you selected each other as a merger partner?
Yeah, I think number one, silver companies that are have high grade assets in the United States are very rare. So we generally all know each other to begin with, because we visit the same conferences. We're based in the same places. And the world is small, as you keep hearing. But really, what does it come down to? It in any deal, on any size, on anything, it comes down to people, and projects and price. Like 3 Ps there that I just kind of came up with. And like, ask yourselves after initial meetings and initial discussions, and you've signed the correct confidentiality agreements. Hey, ask yourselves, are the people going to work well together? For us, the answer was clearly yes. Can we come up with a fair price that we're both happy with? Again, the answer was clearly yes. And then the projects, do they complement each other? We thought yes, but why? United States, high grade. And I just want to talk for 1 minute about scarcity. There's just so few pure or even silver forward assets out there that either aren't in the hands of majors or high grade, or at a point where we think can reach a critical mass, that if we combine 3 of them together, we're kind of taking assets off the board in a way. So yeah.
In the past, we've seen a lot of mergers happen when 2 projects are literally right next to each other. So it makes sense to just combine the land masses. But in this case, you're not contiguous. So Silver47 has projects in Alaska, northern BC. Soma Silver has projects in New Mexico and the continental U.S. Around that region. So we're not looking at projects that are right beside each other. So how did was that an important factor for you at all?
I don't think so. I mean, we're just looking at the jurisdiction generally. So a U.S. focused silver developer, and there's just not many strong high grade silver assets in the U.S. So when you start to look at jurisdictional opportunities, it becomes a pretty short list. So we just see an opportunity to grow on all of these assets, and we plan to continue to do that through the drill bit. But on the pro forma out of the gate transaction, we just grew substantially on a combined company.
So grade is more important for you than location. Is that a fair assessment to make?
Well, grade can chew through a lot of issues for sure, but I think it's a combination. I mean, right now the U.S. looks to be one of the number 1 places in the world to be exploring and developing critical mineral resource projects. So that's a big positive tick. And obviously having the high grade is another big positive tick. And we'll continue to advance on that.
When 2 projects are right next to each other, they share the landmass, they share perhaps zoning, they share a lot of resources that are next to each other. So cost synergies are easily realized when they merge. In your case, that's not the case. So how can investors expect cost synergies going forward?
I think there will. Oh, Gary, if you want to.
No, go ahead.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
From the synergies perspective, I think there's G&A synergies, and I do think there's cost synergies, technically, for sure. I actually don't necessarily see just on at least on a day-to-day basis too much difference in cost synergies between projects that are, in the same country versus the same versus right beside each other. Of course, that changes when you start thinking about capex and building a mine. But I think for now, at the stage that we're at, there will be synergies and cost savings.
I would just
Gary?
add to that is, one of the attractive things for Silver47 was, we're working in a project in South Central Alaska. While Alaska is a great place to operate, come winter months, we're going to be into a bit of a quiet period, and having the opportunity to continue to explore in the lower 48, whether it's New Mexico or Nevada with the Suma's assets, does provide that year-round news flow and growth for the company. So we're not stopping and going because of seasonality issues. So that's one attractive thing I think that makes sense on a combined basis.
Okay. So what's next for you then after the merger? What are your next milestones that we have to be watching for?
Well, right now we just actually this morning announced that drilling has begun on Red Mountain in Alaska, and our focus there is really going to be building ounces significantly at that project this summer. So there's going to be lots of news flow around that and drill results, but also a few other things that we're working on in Nevada that I think that we're getting ready to talk about as well.
Gary, what's next for you?
Well, additional to the drilling that we announced, we are planning some upgrading on the metallurgical work. So there was some historical work giving us about 70 to 90% recoveries on the precious and base metals. But we also want to understand what kind of recoveries that we can anticipate from the critical minerals like antimony and gallium, which are of significant quantities in the resource areas, but not included in the resource statement. So if we could get some recoveries on those, perhaps we can include them in our next restated resource, which we would anticipate either late this year or early 2026. And then also the important thing of that is if we can get enough material, behind the drilling and into the new statement, is that we'd like to see this Red Mountain project move into the PEA stage. And also I think having that box ticked would really open up perhaps the opportunity to attract some of this critical mineral funding coming out of the U.S. From the Department of Energy or Department of Defense. So we're looking forward to chasing those down. And, and we're not stopping here. We're continuing to look at M&A opportunities to continue to grow this company. And we plan to do that. More M&A and lots more drilling.
Galen,
one thing that you're excited about going forward after this merger?
One thing I'm excited about is number one. I mean, like I just see this as the timing is perfect to get into things like this and move forward on silver exploration projects. And we're going to be drilling this summer. So we have a great opportunity to expand Red Mountain to a critical mass that's going to support a good looking PEA. And that's what I'm excited about.
I believe this was an all-share transaction, so there's still a lot of cash to be spent. How are you going to be spending this cash to expand going forward, Gary?
I mean, it's all on the drill bit here. We've got before the transaction, we had about a $4 million approved budget for this year, and I suspect that'll probably close to double on the back of this merger. Those funds are still held in escrow until closing. So we're going to have an aggressive season all the way up till the snow chases us out. And again, then we'll be shifting gears into the lower 48, continuing to drill on those projects currently held by Suma. So lots of exciting silver-focused news flow to come out in the coming months.
Well, how does the combined size of the deposits indicated and inferred now compare to that of your peers of similar grade?
Well, let's say...
Go ahead, please.
Go ahead, Galen.
Like I look at something like Red Mountain in Alaska, and there's 168 million silver equivalent ounces there, and growing, and hopefully growing significantly. There's very few things out there like that. I think it compares very well. And then when I look at our projects in Nevada and New Mexico, one has 44 million ounces silver equivalent, the other 32. We see clear growth vectors there, and I'm speaking as a geologist. To 100 million ounces on each. So it's only a matter of time for us to just expand on all of them, and really push forward that way.
Okay, Gary?
Yeah, when I look at the combined basis, and you're in that sort of 300 to 400 gram silver equivalent grade range, we really start to separate from the pack. There's a lot of resources that are in that sort of 100 gram range category, but you get into that 300 to 400 range and higher, you start to separate from the pack. So I would argue that we're moving up to the right here and breaking away from the pack of silver explorer and developers. And we'll look to continue to make improvements on the size and the grade of these resources.
Now that you're much bigger, are you planning to stay a silver company, or have you considered, or would you consider expanding to other base metals?
I think that if I look at the investor landscape out there, there's just so few silver-focused companies that our niche is being really a silver-focused company. Very simple.
Yeah, that's the goal. It's hard if you look at some of the majors like Hecla and Pan American Silver. It's if you want to grow as a company, there's just more gold opportunities out there than there are silver. And I think if you want to continue to maintain a high profile silver company, you've got to exploit those silver opportunities. So we're going to continue to drill down. No pun intended, on those assets that will fit our narrative and our plan. So yes, I think the focus is silver, but you take in these other metals. A lot of silver production comes from byproducts of gold, silver, copper, lead, zinc mines. So we're going to take it all in, and those are just good economic projects ultimately that you want to bring in on a combined basis. So we'll continue to flesh out the silver opportunities.
So Galen, last question on the company itself. How are investors going to expect you and Gary to add shareholder value now that the companies have merged?
Well, you know what? I think that we've got, instead of having one project or two projects, we've got 3 projects to think about now. Both of us are very experienced geologists that I think specialize in the company that the size of company that we have now, and drilling things out, and both being market focused people in general. So this is kind of like we can double our manpower to double our outreach, which I think adds quite a bit of value.
Okay. I've always wondered, last question to both of you. I've always wondered about this. What is harder, finding a merger partner or a wife?
Well,
I've never thought of it like that.
Neither have I, and the answer is I don't know.
Okay. I don't want to get you guys in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Excellent. Thank you very much. Congratulations again. I appreciate your insights. Where can we learn now more about your company, Silver47?
Yeah, have a look at silver47.ca is our website. And the company trades on the TSX Venture as AGA, and on the OTCQB is AGAF.
Okay. So we'll put the links down below. Make sure to follow Silver47 there. Congrats again, and thank you very much for coming on the show. Galen and Gary will speak again soon. Take care.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, David.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and follow my newsletter link down below for more weekly updates.